Welcome back to the Alter Ego Bros. I'm Andy, that's Nick, and today we're going to be reviewing The Long Walk. Normally, we'll have you guys stay till the very end to hear our ratings. I think we're going to change that up today. I'm going to start it off with our ratings because I want today to be more of a discussion versus just talking about certain points of the movie and going in depth in that, because I just don't think it warrants that in this movie. I think this is just going to be an open-ended discussion. How does that sound to you, Nick?
You're the host, so I gotta do what you say.
Damn right. First of all, I've been gone for a while. I'm sorry. For the regular viewers, I was out in the desert for a while. I don't know where I was. There was somebody called Dave Matthews. I
hear y'all.
I met some friends out there, one of which is a big Stephen King fan, so she's going to be watching our videos and having some commentary back with us. And then on top of that, I also bought a house, so I've just been busy. Now, I know the rest of you who are new to the channel don't give a fuck. I don't blame you, and that's the end of my story.
And likewise, I don't give a fuck about you. I'm glad we're on the same page.
Okay, so for people who do watch the channel regularly, you will know that I am an advocate for Stephen King sucks at writing, at storytelling. He's absolutely god-awful. I hate every single one of his books. I hate every single one of his movie and show adaptations. They're all terrible. I liked this one. I was pleasantly surprised. And, spoilers ahead, I gave this one an 8 out of 10. I thought everything was fantastic about it. I still think Stephen King fucking sucks at writing. But I do think that the director and his also assistant writer in this case, whose names I'm forgetting, Francis Lawrence, who did The Hunger Games, as well as J.T. Molyneux, who is also the main writer of this movie, I think they kind of spearheaded this whole project. Stephen King sucks at writing, but with the help of some friends, they made a really good movie this time. I'll go into more details in a bit, but let's just kind of get your general thoughts right off the bat, Nick. What did you think about this movie?
I enjoyed this movie. I know Stephen King has a couple categories of movies. They're either the more gritty, grounded, and then you've got the more classic horror movies. This one definitely falls into the more grounded territory. That being said, I gave it a 7 out of 10, and there were some things that I thought were just okay, and that's where the score comes from mostly.
To dive deeper into my score of it, the sound effects, there's not a whole lot you can really do in this movie. I thought everything they did was totally fine. I loved the sound of the guns. With that said, since there's not a whole lot to go off of, I gotta stick with middle of the pack. There's just nothing crazy good about it. But everything else was really beautiful. There wasn't a whole lot of music either, but when it hit, it really hit. I thought it was really perfect for every single scene that it came into play. I also thought that the acting was perfect. Every character has a very distinct character trait about them, and I thought every actor portrayed that character perfectly all the way through. And then lastly, the cinematography I thought really helped amplify the storytelling. It did a really good job of making you kind of nervous and scared in the beginning, but by the end, you started to just feel numb to all the chaos going on because you're just also maybe worn out along with the characters.
I 100% agree with you on the music and the cinematography. I really did enjoy the music when it did hit. It really carried a lot of emotion there. I thought the casting was spot on, just like you said. Particularly the main three musketeers were really engaging and really entertaining to watch. I do have a couple of nitpicky parts. The CG wasn't terribly good in the moments that you did see it, or it was blatantly over the top. And then I think that Mark Hamill's character, the Major, should have been a larger role in this whole ensemble. I do think for being the more well-known actor of the group, he was very underutilized. Didn't really do much. I don't even know if he was there for the full shoot because they didn't even show him in the background while they were walking or anything like that. So I have no idea. But major props to David Johnson, who plays Pete, who is also in Alien Romulus as Andy, quickly becoming one of my favorite actors to watch. I loved his performance, and I can't wait to see him in more things.
without further ado, let's dive into the story a bit more, because I think this is where we get really nitpicky. He has these common characteristics within his storytelling that I just drive me up a wall. And the main issue I have with Stephen King is that there's always so many loopholes, there's so many plot holes, there's so many other avenues we could explore with the storytelling that we just don't get to in his stories. Let's start with one of them that I get really nitpicky about. Could you just run? Could you just run so fucking far away that you just ditch everybody? And like, so if you slowed down, they wouldn't know because you're so far ahead. Just run fucking far ahead.
It wasn't about distance. Like, they could run as far as they wanted. There was no finish line, right? But there would be no point in doing that, as you'd get tired quicker.
I'll elaborate. So the purpose is because there's only 5 soldiers monitoring them, and you have 50 people at a time, all just fucking spread out like crazy. Just keep spreading out so far away that they couldn't actually keep track of every single one of you. I don't know. I think there's a strategy to that you could take advantage of the guards and then maybe overtake them too. I don't know.
I don't know if that's a fault of the book or if it's a fault of the movie. I think it's the movie.
Yeah, this is where I have my disconnect with it too, because, and I'm going to rely on Taylor, I'm talking to you, since I know you read the book. Let us know if when you go see this movie, if there's a lot of disconnect between the details of the actual story versus what they demonstrate in the film. Because another one of my issues I have is they really focus on this being a televised thing, but they don't actually show that perspective in the movie at all. And another issue I have too, and this is just a Stephen King issue, slight spoiler, but somebody dies, and after they die, they go, oh, by the way, this guy has this special thing about him that makes his death suddenly really more dramatic for the audience. It's like, why did nobody know that? Oh, he told us before you guys came, so we knew, we just didn't say anything until now, because now it makes it more impactful for the death. And I get annoyed by that, because it's just a cop-out thing that he does all the time. All of a sudden, they introduce some sort of fact that was never introduced, because he realized later, oh, I should write this in to make this a little bit better, and I'm too fucking lazy to actually write that in and script it in.
I did look to see what the differences were between the book and the movie, and that character in particular that you're talking about is actually 2 characters put into one, and it was supposed to be Raymond that has the significant other and not that character. So that was a movie thing, not to cancel out your entire Stephen King rant.
No, but
that particular thing was not Stephen King.
The purpose of my Stephen King rant was just that that was never explained, and all of a sudden it's just explained in the end. He does it in all these other movies,
no, I get
just
you.
to make that certain point at the end seem more dramatic. I'm like, where did that come from? He totally just made that up right now. That's what he does all the time.
I think that gets into the core of what my issue with the story was, because I do agree. So they did cut down the amount of guys from 100 to 50, and 100 would have been way too much. 50 was too much, and I don't think that they spent enough time digging into the relationship aspect of all of the cast members rather than just Pete and Ray. I know they're the most important, but you can tell within the first 5 seconds of interaction that those 2 are going to be the final 2. There's no sense of maybe it's clearly I know what the moral dilemma at the end is going to be, is which one of them gets to the end. And that's kind of how it is in the book as well. The final 3 are the same, but the ending is really where the book and the movie diverge. I think for as much of a runtime as they had, they really could have made you feel a lot more for all the outside characters, because when they just kind of started shooting, right? They just kind of started killing everybody. And it's
there was a few moments in there where suddenly there were mass kills just to get the story moving on to the next section.
Yeah, and it's I don't feel anything for that character. I don't know who that character is or was, and it was just weird until it got to the final 10. And then you're okay, now I've spent enough time with these guys. This kind of makes a little bit more sense, but it's still not as impactful as I think the cinematography would want you to think that it is. they make it very grand, high stakes, high emotional value. But as the audience member watching, we haven't got quite to that point at that moment in time. And that really rubbed me the wrong way throughout the entire movie.
But part of that reason too is because I think there were also just too many moments with the warnings that just drove me up a fucking wall. Because the big thing in the story is that if you slow down a little bit below a certain pace, they give you a warning. You get up to 3 warnings. After 3 warnings, they shoot you. There was early on, there was the main character that slowed down a little bit. He got a warning, and then they had a conversation about it. And after that conversation, they moved on to a different conversation with other main characters. And so to focus on them, they had that other guy slow down again to back away from the focus point. I'm like, he's slowing down again. Where's this warning again? And there were too many examples of that. There were times where 2 guys were just holding each other, pushing each other forward, but one would get a warning all of a sudden. I'm like, they're going the same speed. They haven't changed. Why is he getting a warning all of a sudden? I don't know if that was like post-production and they just made those announcements to keep adding tension throughout the movie because they realized there were too many like dull spots maybe. Because like to me, you would plan ahead and be like, oh, he's going to get a warning, so we need to have a moment where he slows down a little bit. That was never thought out. And I got so annoyed with it because it happened way too goddamn often.
I agree with you on that. And again, I'm going to kind of take your point and drill down to the core of it, of what I think the real issue is they try to use that warning system or like this kind of unseen voiced character who's given out these warnings as the antagonist for the film. And it doesn't work. I think they had 2 other characters that were completely unused that could have given them a different height to the tension. And that was one, the Major. We should have seen more of him. He should have been like a constant like torment to these boys, right? He would have been like a prime example of like toxic masculinity and telling you, oh, suck it up. He was your enemy. Like you're one step closer to winning now. How does that feel? You know, like completely downplaying the entire horror of the actual scenario and like just getting under the skin. And then the other one is the kid who has the spook, who's kind of like off the wall and like sketchy from the beginning, who kind of becomes this misunderstood bully trope. And yet, I don't know, it fell flat for me. I think the more compelling thing to do for his character would have been to make him an active threat. Because what I was going through my mind was like, he's going to try and throw him off the road. They're both on the side of the road. He's going to try, and he's going to be like, well, if you guys don't like respect me or whatever, and he's going to try and throw one of the main characters off the road. Once you're off the road, that's an instant kill. No warnings, nothing like that. And I think if he would have been like that throughout the entire run, that would have made for some fire underneath the foot of these kids being like, okay, well, we're the last 10, but the crazy psychopath's still here, and he's going to try and kill us all.
Yeah, I had the same thought too. That's a good point. And maybe that's where it really lacks the most to build some sort of climax for me here. It's just because when they got to that final conversation with the crazy guy, I thought he was going to like chokehold somebody, bring him down to the ground and hold him there and be like, you're going to die with me or something like that. Something crazy like that. Because he said earlier, like, oh, I have a plan for you. It's like, oh, he's going to try to like...
Exactly. That never came around.
It's missing a character that purposely is trying to get others killed so he can win. Taylor, does the book tell a story about somebody who does that type of stuff? Or is this another missing part of a Stephen King story? Okay, let's conclude this. So that's going to give our channel rating an overall score of 7.5 out of 10, which puts it in, I'm supposed to go a certain way. The 7 tier, just put it over my face, which is surprising for a Stephen King film. Again, I think it was all the other aspects of it that makes a really good movie that just really hit the nail on the head.
It was missing something, and it kind of dragged the whole movie down for me. So pacing and that little bit of writing / story is what took off those 3 points for me.
Very good. Thank you for liking and subscribing. We really appreciate it. And remember, we're just 2 regular dudes
doing regular reviews.
this is where I have a common theme of why I hate Steven Spielberg.
King. Stephen
What?
King, not Spielberg.
Did I say Steven Spielberg in the beginning of this?
No, you said King before, but now you said Spielberg.
We'll find out later if I fucked that up.